information, we hit perform audit. And what that does is it generates for us a set of questions specifically that we want to make sure we do internally for every new customer that we onboard. And so that's kind of how we use it. Taylor, do you want to show, since they're starting to use audits and getting into this, do you want to go in and show how to copy an audit and how to make that fast? Because you might assign an audit to a specific department, for instance, that you want them to do. And these would be more for, it doesn't have to be reoccurring, I guess, but do you want to show how you might build one for maybe it's Jamie's audit and then build another one that would be Kale's audit or something, and how you can copy those to make it quick for them to build?
Yeah, so let's say we have this Gemba walk and I want to have my own version of that. And I've got a few questions. So it's all, whatever's set up, there's the copy button, as Jamie mentioned. So again, I'm in task sets. So I'm copying that standard list of things. And when I hit copy, it's going to give me some questions. So do I want to keep it in the same project type? So if I look over here, this one was continuous improvement. I can keep it in continuous improvement, or I can put it somewhere else. And I can assign a category if I want. But I'm going to give this, this is going to be, and I'll just call this my version. Yeah, we ran out of characters. And then if you want to give it a description different from what the task set name is, you can. A lot of times that matches. And then it gives you all these checkboxes. It says, well, what do you want to copy? Do you really want everything? So the main task information will be, these things down, or the task items will be these things down here. The location, so up here, if you see in the background, there's a locations tab. That's where you could select various departments or work centers or equipment or location, anything that's location based. If you want to copy those, if there's parts involved, so any of these things, including assignments. So I'll go ahead and bring everything across, but there might be times where you want to exclude some of those things, like maybe the attachments don't apply to your new place, or the location doesn't apply and you're going to add your own. In fact, I'll just do that. So if I took away the locations, you can see these other things that are location based also go away. So I could create this copy, and this one, Gemba walk process is now, it's opened a new record, which is the mine, and I could go then into the locations tab and say, now I want to do this for a different department, and I'm involved in the door plant. So I'll put the door plan in here, and you can put the rest of this if you wanted. But so now I have this. So if I go back to the list on this tab, we'll just do this, Gemba. So we can see now I have this new one plus the one that was already there, and apparently we look like we've already done this copied once before as well. And then you have your own separate one you can manage and control from there. Another good thing to take a look at is the legends while we're here. And speak up, anybody, if you have questions, put them in the chat window, or be ready to speak up. But you can see there's some different icons here. So if I scroll all the way down and look at the legend, it gives you a quick glance. This one's active and it has a schedule associated with it. You have this one that with a little line through it that just says it's not scheduled. We have this one where there's some missing info. So in this case, the recurrence button is turned to on state, but maybe it doesn't have, well, let's just pick one of these and look. So in this case, it says reoccur, but I haven't told it how often to reoccur. It tells it, days, but it doesn't say how many days. So this one, even though you have it turned on, it's not going to schedule itself until you fill in the missing information. So, so pay attention to these little icons. the little meter looking one is a lot of times this is maintenance based, but it can be used anywhere. You can set up a meter. It could be based on cycles or gallons or number of defects or whatever the case may be. But that meter is something that you create, and then you would be responsible for updating the values of the meter as you go on. And so if you set something to do when the meter, every 5, or when the meter exceeds 5, as you update it to 1 to 2 to 3, and the next week you set it to 6, that's then going to generate an audit based off of that meter. So, and I don't see any with this other icon, but if you have one associated to a piece of equipment or a location, and then that equipment is been inactivated, it would give you a flag to say, well, you have an audit for something that you're telling me is no longer an active piece of equipment. So. Good. Any other questions? Looks like we got one coming in the chat. So
I think I'm good until I start playing with a little bit more.
okay.
Thanks, guys. Awesome.
You bet. Hey, Connie, as you are playing, I'll plant a seed in your mind on this, a little insider information that's not out yet. But in our next webinar for our monthly webinars, we'll be rolling out an improvement to audits. And that improvement is this. So today's world, it becomes a project, just like Cale said. So an audit is a set of questions that once kicked off, whether it's automatically through reoccurrence or manually, once it's kicked off, it becomes into the project section. And what the beauty of that is in Standard Thrive today is if you want to do follow-up assignments, or you want to kind of close the loop, track labor to it, if you want to do those things, you can do that. So that's how Thrive is today. But there's other times where you might want to do an audit and just be done. So as soon as I hit complete and I answer my 10 questions or whatever, I want to be done with that. I don't need it to go into the project. It's always going to go into the project page, but I don't need to do follow-up, and I don't need to track labor. I just want to be done when I answer these 10 questions. There's some new features that'll be coming out, and we're talking about in the April webinar, that allows people to just answer the questions, and then it basically saves the whole project when you do that. So there is some new features, if that's of any interest, that will be coming out in the next few weeks here. So.
All right, cool.
Good. Well, if there are no other questions on tasks/audits, I do have a question here from Alma about safety. So I'll give a little rundown of an overview of safety area. So any other questions on audits or tasks before I move on? Okay. And so the question is if we can give an intro on the safety side. So I will be glad to do that. As I go through here, if there are any areas where you would like to have more detail, let me know. Otherwise, I will just give a quick overview. So within safety module, there's accident investigation, or some people will call this incident investigation, so different names. And then there's SOPs, or safe operating procedures, the safety data sheets, formerly known as material safety data sheets, or MSDS, now just going by the universal name of SDS. And again, there's requests and projects and audits. So this would be the same audits as we just talked about, but specifically within the safety module. And then most of the rest of these are lists for setting up information that are used in these other areas. So I'll give a quick overview of the incident or accident investigation module. So in this case, should be very familiar, as in other areas of Thrive, you have your main list, and you can create new ones, and you can do all of the searching and filtering on the toolbar. If I open up one of these records, there's, as normal in Thrive, there's general information, there's some time-based information about when did the incident happen, there's location-related information, and then there is, in this case, incidents can be employee-related, so there's employee-related information here. And then all of this, again, is you would determine how much you need to record based on what do you want to report on when you get all of this information collected. So, maybe you want location information, maybe you don't, but if it's important to you to know, to be able to trend and look at where the incidents are happening, then you want to record this. And then there's the basic information about, recording, capturing what happened. And that usually involves some sort of summary, a description, and a lot of times when an employee is involved, there's an interview that happens with the employee to get their feedback on what happened. So you can fill that information out. And just like there is in other areas of Thrive, there's additional information. So you can create your own questions. And again, these are usually designed around what type of information do I want to be able to create a report on, so that I can look at trends and try to get better and reduce the number of incidents. So just some questions here that people have asked in the past: how long has somebody been at their job? If it was ergonomic, and then there's different check boxes and numbers as well. And then this information down here is more standard, and this really applies to OSHA questions that are required, at least in the United States, for reporting on an annual basis. So in this case, I'll bring this up, but there are these classifications. So if it's a lost work day or a restricted work, these determine what type of reporting has to happen at for the government, for OSHA. So if I have a recordable injury, that's going to go into one of my OSHA 300 logs at the end of the year. And then there's these other classifications which are also part of that report. And then if you have lost work days or restricted days, you can capture the beginning and the ending and the amount of time that happens. And then again, these are all standard questions that are on OSHA reports as well. And then accident investigations, you can build these out. These are code levels. So if I wanted to add one, I can show you what that list looks like. You can build out like code 1. In this case, there's part of body, and then there's different code 2s that go with part of body, type of accident. So you build those out, and again, those are all to help you with reporting, so that you can catch trends. And then 5 why analysis. So if you're doing a root cause investigation, you can record your 5 why here, and then typically there's assignments or corrective actions that come out of that, so that belongs here. And attachments, a lot of times pictures are very helpful when incidents happen to be able to record those. So you can put pictures or any other type of files that you want to attach to the incident. To extend that a little bit from a safety standpoint, so at the end of the time period, there's a couple of reports that you can bring up. And so in this case, this is, I don't have a lot of data in here, but this fills out this OSHA 300 form for you based on, again, if you've marked incidents as restricted or job transfers or recordable injuries. So it can help you fill out that information for you. I can go back and look and see if I have any from prior year. I don't think I have a lot of information in the test system. Okay. So I'll keep watching the chat window and listening for questions, but that's the incident investigation. SOPs, safe operating procedures. You can build out the safe, this information, and it's typically related to an area or a process. In this case, this one's related to a piece of equipment, and there's date tracking, and you can give it a name, and then it allows you to talk about some of the different procedures that go along with it, whether it's a means of isolating energy. This is similar to your lockout tagout type of steps. If there's related MSDSs or SDSs, if there's PPE or personal protective equipment that's involved, and then if you want to add more detail, there's attachments that can be brought in as well. So
can you link? I have a question.
Yes.
Can you link these to PM? So like if we have to follow a lockout tagout procedure for a certain type of PM, can you link those two?
Yeah, that's a good question. How do you deploy or use these things? So let me bring up the maintenance. So the maintenance PMs are very similar to the audit process. So when you see the screen for a PM, it's going to look like the audits. Let's see. So in here you have it related. Oh, this one might be the same one. Related to this equipment. So I'll try to show you how this all links. So you can see this one has an SOP related to this equipment. And then if I do so again, same steps, I'm doing this ad hoc, performing this, which is creating this PM. Save this. Jamie might have to help me out. I'm trying to remember where that normally shows you that you have SOP related.
I think it's just on the equipment itself. So like if I'm doing this work order, it's associated to the SOP. So, or excuse me, associated to the piece of equipment.
Yeah, I was thinking.
So
I must be thinking of something else. I was thinking that it flagged us that one had a procedure associated to it, but maybe not.
No, I don't know if I don't think it does, but it's associating it with a piece of equipment. So there's a couple of things that you could do to that specific question, and maybe Kale's going to find something that I don't know about, but it could be. But the equipment becomes your linchpin, you might say. So if I go to the equipment section under Thrive and I pull up a piece of equipment, from there I'll be able to see any SOPs associated with that. So if I'm doing a work order, I can bring it up. The other thing that if you want it to pull up, the other thing you could do is the safety notes in Thrive. So if you go to a piece of equipment, so go ahead and open that piece of equipment there, Kale.
Yeah, that's the one.
What you could do, is that what you're thinking of?
Yeah. Oops. Sorry.
So go ahead and just open up a piece of equipment, any piece. And if you, yeah, go ahead and open one of those.
I want to grab this same one. Komatsu 200. Okay.
Okay, so you'll notice, let's see if it's on, yeah, see where it says safety notes under comments? Go ahead and hit edit once there. So this, anytime you have a piece of equipment, if you want to put a note in here, so maybe it is, make sure to check equipment SOP, or
if you have something like that you want as a warning, I've seen a lot of people use this for, you know, whatever risk, it's really a risk tool. But so now if we go in and we do a new work order, or a PM is the same concept. So anything new that comes through the system, whether it's through a PM or through a work order, and you choose that piece of equipment. So go ahead and pick the Komatsu yeah, there you go. So you can see there it automatically puts that safety note on here, you know, SOP before starting. So in that case, if it had that note, you know, in Thrive today, what you'd do is you'd click the equipment. So you can go right from here, click the equipment. It's going to take you to that SOP, and I can see there's 2 of them there. So when I click on that SOP, I can open whichever one it is in this example. And this links to the SOP section that Cale was showing you how to build. So at this point, you can see your lockout points, your energy points, whatever it might be associated with it. So that's how it intertwines.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
Thanks, Jamie. That was actually what I was remembering, that we had this, but I forgot it was the safety note, not the SOP. So yeah. So again, if you add the safety note on the equipment, that will alert you here on, and this is I'm actually in the work order, which is in this case a planned maintenance work order, or in this one it's called a TPM. And then if they're doing these electronically, it's pretty straightforward for them to just click on the name of the equipment and brings up the equipment. They can look at all the information about the equipment, including attachments. If you have manuals or pictures, etc., they can look at history, but then they can also get to the operating procedures from here as well. So, good question.
Yeah, and that becomes super powerful for your maintenance team for a variety of reasons. One, it's in one quick spot when you click that, so your SOP is there. But like Cale said, attachments can be there, troubleshooting manuals, diagrams, whatever. And the one that I hear people like is the past projects. So it shows them every work order associated with that piece of equipment, the history, in one spot. And so where this becomes powerful now is what did we use for parts last time, or when was it that broke down, or who worked on that last time? It becomes a quick way for them to not have to hunt around to try to figure it out, but have information, you know, fairly quick at their fingertips.
So if I'm adding a safe operating procedure, let's say it's a lockout tagout for a press, and I put that under safety, when I go to PM and I'm going to put safe operating procedure, then I can just reference that lockout tagout procedure by name and link them?
Actually, it'll automatically be there because it's associated with the equipment. So Cale, go back once into the SOP. Whatever you put in here for an association, it'll automatically show up with, in that example, a piece of equipment. So if when you do a PM, which you usually would put a PM with a piece of equipment, those behind the scenes, it's tying it all together. So it's saying this piece of equipment's the linchpin, you might say, or the key metric, in that everything now is going to associate to that piece of equipment. So if it has an SOP, it associates with that piece of equipment. If I have a PM and I'm associated with that piece of equipment, that's what's connecting it together. So then when the PM generates, when it actually, you know, kicks off and becomes a work order, at that point, the person doing the work can, from that piece of equipment, go and see history or SOPs or attachments.
So when I'm setting this up, once I enter the safe operating procedures and link them to the equipment, the only other thing I have to do is pick the particular PM that lockout tagout would be associated with it and put it in safety notes for that particular PM. Correct?
Yeah. So right. So you shouldn't even have to pick the SOP. You're just going to have to pick the piece of equipment.
Yeah. So let's.
Yeah, but not all of my PMs are lockout tagout is the problem. Some of them are, some of them aren't. So like if I'm just adding oil, am I going to have to do a lockout tagout as I would for like a quarterly PM? So even though the SOP might be there associated with the piece of equipment, I still think I would have to go into safety notes by type of PM and put that in when I needed to lock it out.
I see. So some of the times you have a more your lockout your SOP changes depending on which PM you're doing.
Yes, potentially.
Yeah. Okay. So then what I would probably do is have your you can put different SOPs, and then what you're going to be doing is for that piece of equipment, it's going to show it has two different SOPs, and then when Kale's drawing here, what I would do is in the safety note for that specific one, maybe it's I'll say less lockout tagout, right? I would put a note in there that it is this specific SOP, so that it pops up, and when the people follow the process of looking at that SOP, they're only looking at the lesser one, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay. That's what I needed to know.
Yep. And sometimes I've seen some people who don't, they'll use that safety note almost in place of the SOP to some degree. Like they'll pop some, it's just a message to the technician to say, hey, make sure to remember this. And so if it might have two things in there. It might say only use this SOP, and remember you need to use this type of oil because we've put the wrong oil in enough times. I want to make, or it's not really a safety note, but it can be. I've seen people use it for a variety of ways to remind technicians.
Okay, good. Does that answer your question then?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good questions. So we talked about incident investigations, safe operating procedures, and how to use those with equipment and PMs and safety notes. Safety data sheets would be the next item. And we'll grab one of these. So again, it's a list view. You can open them with the global harmonization standard. We're now using pictograms all over the world. So we have that set of pictograms here. In this case, they're all checked, but when you're in the edit mode, you might say, well, these pictograms apply, and then it's going to show you here. You have the ability to just track, like, what is the revision, what was the last revision, and this information is really based on the manufacturer's information. So if you have a PDF from the manufacturer, you can attach it here, fill out within Thrive the pieces of that information that are helpful to you. And again, that's usually based on what are the things that you might want to search on or to do a report on, to say, show me all of my SDSs that have a in a certain material category or have a certain signal word. So you can do as little as putting a name in here, and you can change this from part to material description or whatever, having a name and an attachment, and then this can just be a quick database for you to search on and find that chemical by name and then be able to pull up the attachment. Or you can go to the extent of filling out as many of these fields as you want, including creating additional information and filling those out, down to the level of the CAS numbers that are listed, the GHS, the precautionary statements. So if you have like a hazard, 200, and you have a precautionary, or not a precautionary, you have it in, what was the other one? The P statements.
They're P statements.
Yeah, they're not coming up. Maybe a P300. So you could build all those out so they're there. And what that allows you to do then is there's a label. You can create a label off of this and print it out. And we have a standard one here. We've had some companies that have their own format, and so they've asked us to create a custom label for them that builds out and prints either the size of the format or the template that they like. And then you can print straight from here, whether to a PDF or to a printer. So and that same one can be emailed. So there's a lot of information here, and again, you can use it as a very basic tool, just as a document repository for all your SDSs, all the way up to filling out all of this information so that it's highly searchable and customizable and usable for you. One process related suggestion I would have is, we have the requirement of ensuring that we're keeping those up to date and on file for our employees to access, which I will come to that in a minute. But one of the things that I like to do is suggest that people use this last revision, or pick an additional information and do like last updated, where you need to do that every, I think we're supposed to do that every year, but whatever frequency you want to make, and then create a safety audit around that. And that audit would be, check 20 or check 30, the next 30 on the list, and then create a report that would be sorted by the oldest one and show me the top 20 oldest SDSs and based on the date, the last time that I checked those. And then you can assign somebody to go out, and every month they might update 20 of those and go to the manufacturer's website, make sure that they have the latest PDF copied and uploaded, and that they've got the revision number and the last manufacturer's revision recorded here. So gives you a way to make sure you're staying on track and utilizing the tools that are in here. And the audit can remind you to do that and give you a history of, yes, I've been doing this on a cadence. Every month I'm checking 20 to 25 of these, or whatever number it is that you need in order to cycle through all of your SDSs in an appropriate timeline. So,
I have a question.
Yes.
When we went to the global harmonized system, we put in a toggle field that says, new format basically in it. I'd like to be able to search for anything that doesn't have that toggle put on it, so I can inactivate them in the system, because obviously they're chemicals we haven't purchased since 2015. Is there an easy search on a user-defined field like that?
Yeah, so you can do a search. So we could do something like, if it was checkbox 02, I can say if checkbox 02, and maybe in your system checkbox 02 is called old format. Whatever you've named it, it will show up here. And you could say, show me all the ones where that's checked. In this case, I don't have any that are checked. Or you could build a filter if you wanted to come back to that on a recurring basis. Let me hide this. I could build a filter, and actually let me go in and check one of these just so I have it.
Because I was looking at the inactive field. I guess I never noticed, either I didn't notice it was there, or I don't have that field in our version. Is that standard?
It's standard. So
it is standard. Okay, so it's there. I just didn't notice it maybe.
Yeah, so in form security, so I'll go to form security. My guess is, if you don't see it, is that the visibility of it has been turned off. And so that would be here in the safety, I should say SDSs. And then there would be the ability to turn those on and off, including this is how you would turn on and off or relabel the additional information fields as well.
So that's an admin what?
Yeah, great question. So it's in, so here's, I'll show you that, and then I'll show you on the menu. So here's where you go through and you could turn in this case, I could turn that checkbox 02 and not the beverage, but the formatting.
Which, by the way, I was laughing really hard, even though I was muted here, looking at your angle iron that had absolutely every pictogram checked. And I'm like, what the heck are you doing with your angle iron?
Yeah.
That was funny. Okay, sorry.
No problem. So admin form security is where you go.
Admin form security. Okay.
Yep. Okay. And so so that's where this inactive button could be turned on and off, or maybe it's been changed the name of it, and it might be in this position, but with a different name.
I'll go on a search and destroy mission looking for it.
Okay. And then this checkbox here that we just added, which maybe somebody has done for you. So back to that example of creating a filter. So we could look for that. Show me where that's checked. And then it's going to show me all of those. So you could use that as the place to come back to that list and say, I need to work on those. And then you can always toggle that filter back off or turn it on as needed.
Okay.
And then their question about the CAS information as well. So I'll go to my angle iron, which turn all of those on. But if I add a CAS information in here, I could say, let's put this toluene in there, which is on every list. It's already, TRI. This flag here is a company specific flag. So some companies have their own chemicals that they flag and want to be able to come up on a report. So now based on this, yes, I can run a report that shows me all of the chemicals where the TRI is checked. In fact, I might even want to do that here and say, let's build my TRI list. And I think I can get to it. CAS, TRI is checked. And so now this shows me in this case, I have 2 of them where TRI is checked. And I can always come back to that, or I can turn the filter off and see everything. Heidi, does that answer that question? Awesome. Okay. And then the other thing I wanted to show you on the home screen, you will see, I guess I don't have, maybe it's turned on there. Down here, there's the SDSs, this list. So there's another way to get to it here. And what you'll notice is this looks slightly different. And if you look up here in the URL, you'll see this public, PUB stands short for public, meaning this is the version that you can get to, provided it's turned on. You can get to it without logging into Thrive. So SDS being something that is somewhat unique in that, we have the requirement of making those available to all employees. The old method was you had a binder of books in an office somewhere or a closet somewhere, and you said, well, anybody can get to it, but it wasn't very convenient to get to, and they had to search through them, and maybe you had them alphabetized by chemical name, or maybe you had them alphabetized by manufacturer, and it was just hard to get to. So now you can use Thrive as the replacement for that in an electronic format, and you can have the public version where you can allow any of your employees to get to. They don't have access to all of the details, maybe, and they can't edit it, but they can get, they can see the basic information, and provided that you have it turned on, they could potentially print a label as well if they needed a label. So if you have somebody out in the shop and said, well, the label's destroyed on this barrel, they could come in, find that information, print a new label, and go out and correct the situation on their own. So there is a public version. That's on that home screen. But if I'm signed out, it's also on the sign-in screen. So you could have a computer or a kiosk or a tablet somewhere that somebody could come through, and even if they don't have a username to log in, they could click on this safety data sheets and get access to a read-only access to that list. Okay, sign back in. Good. So I think we're nearing the end of our time, so I'll open it up for questions. But again, safety has projects in it as well, which have requests and task and audits and scheduling and all of those tools. So any other questions about safety or otherwise? Good. Well, if there's nothing else, we'll close it up. If you have any other questions, well, first of all, we'd love to have you next week. Great session. So we'll do this again next week. And if you have any questions in between, feel free to send them over to our support account. And by the way, for those, one last thing to close us out. So Alma's joining us from Mexico, and one of the things that we have implemented that may be of interest to others at some point is you can go into settings, and we do have the ability to turn on a second language here. And so in this case, you can work with Thrive menus and forms in Espanol. So, and that's a user setting. So each user could pick their language, English or Spanish. All right. Thanks everyone. We'll close it up for this week.